Hi dears, welcome back to my channel. Today we will learn history from class 8. And the chapter which we study is Trebel, Dicus, and the Vision of a Golden Age. If you're new or haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. Let's learn and explore together. Now, let's dive straight into the key points. Today we all lead a very comfortable life in the cities with all the facilities available to us. But do you know there are some people who still live in forests, known as tribal people? In this chapter we will study about some of the tribes of our country and their struggle against Dicus, means the people those who were outsiders for these tribals. Here the Dicus is referred to the Britishers. Let's start. Tribals want to safeguard themselves from the Britishers because these tribes had their own way of living. Their society and beliefs were different from those who lived in cities or villages. The traditions and practices observed by the majority of tribal communities are different from Brahmins. People belonging to same tribe often thought of sharing the same kinship. However, these tribes had some social and economic differences. So, let's see how the tribal groups live. How did tribal groups live? During the 19th century, tribal people in different parts of India were involved in various activities like jhum cultivators, hunters and gatherers, herded animals, and settled cultivation. Jhum cultivators. Some of the tribes practiced jhum cultivation, that is, shifting cultivation. This was done on small patches of land, mostly in forests. The cultivators cut the tree tops to allow sunlight to reach the ground and burnt the vegetation on the land to clear it for cultivation. They scattered the ashes from the fire, which contained potash, to fertilize the ground. Once the harvest was prepared and harvested, they moved to another field. One field that was once grown was left fallow for several years. Fallow means a field left uncultivated for a while so that the soil recovers fertility. Hunters and gatherers. In many parts of the country, tribal groups lived by hunting animals and gathering forest products. They saw forests as critical to their survival. The Khons were such a community that lived in the forests of Orissa. They routinely engaged in collective hunting and then shared the meat. They used a wide range of shrubs and forest herbs for medicinal purposes and sold forest products in local markets. Local weavers and leather workers turned to the Khons when they needed supplies of kusum and palash flowers to color their garments and leather. Tribal groups often had to buy and sell in order to obtain commodities that were not produced locally. These forest-dwelling communities engaged in barter systems, exchanging their forest produce for necessary items. Herded animals. Many tribal groups lived by herding and rearing animals. They were pastoralists who moved with their herds of cattle or sheep according to the seasons. When the grass in one place was exhausted, they moved to another area. The Van Gujars of the Punjab Hills and the Labadis of Andhra Pradesh were cattle herders. The Gaddis of Kulu were shepherds. And the Bakrawals of Kashmir reared goats. Settled cultivation. Many tribal groups had begun to settle down instead of moving from place. They began to use the plough and gradually got rights over the land they lived on. All clan members traced their lineage back to the original settlers who cleared the land. Very often, some people within the clan have become more powerful than others. Some have become leaders and others disciples. Powerful men often rented their land instead of farming it on their own. British officials saw settled tribal groups like the Gonds and Santals as more civilized than hunter-gatherers. So now we know that the tribals had different ways of living, but what made them against the Dicus or Britishers? Let's see this. How did colonial rule affect tribal lives? The lives of tribal groups changed during British rule. Let's see what are the changes. What happened to tribal chiefs? Before the arrival of the British, in many areas the tribal chiefs were important people. They were economically powerful and had the right to administer and control their territories. During the British rule, they lost some of their powers. They were allowed to keep control over village and rent out the lands, but they lost their administrative powers. They were forced to follow laws made by British officials in India. They were not able to execute some of their traditional functions. What happened to the shifting cultivators? The British were uncomfortable with groups moving around without a fixed house. They wanted the tribals to settle and become peasant farmers. The British wanted to regular revenue source for the state and introduced land settlements. They measured the land and fixed the revenue. Some peasants were declared as landowners and others tenants. The tenants were to pay rent to the landowner, who in turn paid revenue to the state. The British effort to settle Jhum cultivators was not successful in northeastern part of India, as the land was not fertile enough. After facing widespread protests, the British eventually granted some tribes the right to continue practicing shifting cultivation in specific forested areas. What else was affecting their life? Let's check this out. Forest laws and their impact. The life of tribal groups was directly connected to the forest. Changes in forest laws directly impacted tribal communities. The British extended their control over all forests. Some forests were designated as reserved forests due to their timber resources. In those forests, people did not have the right to move freely, to grow crops, to gather fruit, or to hunt animals. Many tribal had to move to other areas in search of work and livelihood. But Britishers faced the problem of non-availability of laborers for their own work. So the officials decided to give Jhum cultivators with small patches of land in the forests and allow them to cultivate. In return, those who lived in the villages had to provide labor to the forest department. Many tribal groups reacted against the colonial forest laws and rose in an open rebellion. There were some other problems too. Let's see. The problem with trade. During the 19th century, tribal groups found the traders and moneylenders were coming into forests. They wanted to buy forest products. They offered cash loans and asked tribal groups to work for wages. In the 18th century, the demand for Indian silk was high in European markets. The silk market expanded, so the East India Company encouraged silk production. Hazaribagh, in present-day Jharkhand, was an area where the Santals reared cocoons. The traders dealing in silk sent in their agents, who gave loans to the tribal people and collected the cocoons. These were then exported to Burdwan or Gaya, where they were sold at 5 times the price. The tribals were earning less, and the middlemen were making huge profits. So tribals believed that traders were their enemies. The search for work, the fate of the tribals, who were forced to move away from their homes in search of employment, was even worse. From the late 19th century, tea plantations started coming up, and mining became an important industry. Tribals were recruited in large numbers to work at the tea plantations of Assam and the coal mines of Jharkhand. They were hired by entrepreneurs who paid them miserably low wages and prevented them from returning home. Tribal communities from various regions of the country revolted against the imposition of new laws, restrictions on their traditional practices, the imposition of additional taxes, and the exploitation by traders and moneylenders. Birsa Munda movement. Birsa Munda was born on 15 November 1875. He was a tribal leader of the Munda tribe who fought against the British colonial rule in India. He started a movement to reform the Munda society. He went against the British, the missionaries, moneylenders, traders and Hindu landlords. The spread of the Munda movement worried the British. They arrested and jailed him in 1895. He was released in 1897 and travelled to many villages to gather support. His followers attacked churches and police stations and took over the properties of the landlords and the moneylenders. Birsa's vision of a golden age was to have their land free of dicus. But the movement faded out with the death of Birsa in 1900. The movement forced the British to introduce laws to protect the lands of the tribals. The British made the laws stricter so that the land of the tribals could not be easily taken over by dicus. Dears, from this video you explore various inquiries concerning tribals, dicus, and related topics. It includes the experience of tribal communities under British rule, highlighting the changes in their lives. And finally, Birsa Munda movement. I hope this video has been valuable in providing a quick understanding of the topic. For more content, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please take a moment to like and share this video with others who might find it helpful. Your support means a lot. Thank you.